مرحبا وأهلا وسهلا بكم. Hello and welcome to this important grammar lesson in Modern Standard Arabic, where I'll show you how to form comparatives and superlatives easily and quickly. هيا نبدأ. Let's begin. First, you need to know that this is what we call أسلوب التفضيل. So the method of literally expressing preference or comparing things in Arabic. If we look at this adjective, طويل, which means tall, and it comes from a three-letter verb, which is طاولة, to become tall, we can form these sentences, أحمد طويل أو خالد طويل. So Ahmad is tall, Khalid is tall. Ahmad طويل, Khalid طويل. Now I want to compare them. I want to say someone is taller than the other. So in Arabic, everything follows a pattern. It's a very logical language. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the pattern أفعل. So I changed طويل to أطول. So what happened is I've dropped an alif over here, and then أفعل. So أطول. This is going to change to a sukun. أطول أفعل. And that's going to change to a fatha, and we're going to get rid of that ya. أطول. So we changed طويل to أطول. أفعل. Keep in mind in Arabic, أطول means taller and at the same time tallest. In English, you change the suffixes, you add ER or EST, and then you can tell whether it's comparative or superlative. But in Arabic, it's the same, and we can tell from the sentence. So I'll show you. أحمد أطول من خالد. So we say taller than. We're going to use أطول من. أحمد أطول من خالد. Taller than. So we use من to say taller than. If I want to say Ahmad is the tallest, Ahmad is the tallest, I'm going to add alif lam to the adjective that we formed, the comparative adjective, and it becomes superlative. So I say Ahmad huwa al-atwal. So we add alif lam. Ahmad huwa al-atwal. Al-atwal. Atwal becomes al-atwal. Ahmad is the tallest. So very simple. Keep in mind, this comparative or superlative adjective has to come from a three-letter verb. So the pattern is formed from three-letter verbs. We cannot form it from verbs that are not three-letter, more than that. So we have to use a helping word, and we'll come to that later on. If we look at سريع, fast, and that comes from a three-letter verb, which is سرع, to hasten or be fast or quick. الأرنب أسرع من السلحفاة. So the rabbit is faster than the turtle. الأرنب أسرع من السلحفاة. So أسرع, أفعل, سريع, أسرع, أفعل. So same way we form the comparative. Now if I want to say الأرنب, the rabbit is the fastest, we say هو الأسرع. We add ألف لام. الأسرع. So it becomes al-af'al. Very easy, very simple. Another example, I'm sure you've come across kabir and akbar. Kabir is big, and that comes from the three-letter verb kabura, which means to become big. Al-ardu akbar, af'al. So al-ardu akbaru min al-qamar, is bigger than the moon. Ard, by the way, is a feminine noun. So over here, I'm going to say al-ardu hiya. Al-ardu hiya al-akbar. So a few words in Arabic, despite not having feminine endings, are considered feminine. For example, if I say ayn, an eye, or if I say yed, a hand, they're feminine. Or ash-shams, the sun, is considered feminine. Al-ardu hiya akbar, hiya al-akbar. Al-akbar, the biggest. So we add alif lam, we formed the superlative. Very easy and simple. Another example, you could come across such a construction. If I want to say the most generous of all men, is Ahmad. So I say أكرم الرجال أحمد. So again, I use pattern أفعل. كريم is generous, and that's from the three-letter verb كرم, and it becomes أكرم. كريم أكرم. كريم أفعل. أكرم. أكرم الرجال أحمد. So very simple, you change the adjective to the comparative or superlative by using the pattern أفعل. Let's practice these words. You don't really even have to know which verb it comes from. Simply you change it to pattern أفعل. Jamil, which means beautiful, and sometimes we comment about something, we say Jamil, that means nice as well. Pause the screen, try to do it on your own. So Jamil, بشع, صغير, كبير, قصير, طويل, نحيف, سمين, ذكي, smart. And I'll give you a hint. If I say قوي, that becomes أقوى. قوي, strong, that becomes أقوى. So the ya, the geminated ya over here, turns into al-alif al-maqsura. قوي, أقوى. ذكي, I'll leave that to you. نظيف, كريم, قريب, سريع, كثير, قليل, وبعيد. Pause and try to do them on your own. If you're ready to hear the answers, let's carry on. The answers are جميل, أجمل. So أفعل. بشع, أبشع. Notice how we drop the alif and we change the vowels. صغير, أصغر. And if we have a ya, we're getting rid of the ya. كبير, أكبر. قصير, so we drop the alif, we put a sukoon. Fatha over here, we got rid of the ya, أقصر. طويل, أطول. نحيف, أنحف. سمين, أسمن. ذكي, أذكى. Remember, قوي, أقوى. ذكي, أذكى. نظيف, أنظف. كريم, أكرم. قريب, أقرب. سريع, أسرع. كثير, أكثر. قليل, أقل. less. بعيد, أبعد. Well done. Just a few notes. You don't really have to know this, but for those who like to dig deeper, so only if you're ready, but so far, well done. This is all you need to know. Only continue if you want to know deeper, if you're at an intermediate level, let's say. So you must fulfill a few conditions to form أفعل. The verb that the pattern أفعل comes from, or the comparative superlative adjective that comes from, should be 3 letters, as we discussed before. For example, كتب, خرج, كبر, etc. It cannot be formed from verbs like, for example, كان and sisters, auxiliary verbs. That wouldn't make any sense. You can't say someone is more being or more was or something. That wouldn't make sense. Cannot be formed from the negative. You cannot compare like based on the negative. So you cannot say someone, that's not going to make sense. So you cannot form it from, for example, not right. Just common sense things. And the verb has to be something that can be conjugated in the past, present, etc. So it cannot be formed from rigid verbs. It can only be formed from verbs in the active voice, not the passive voice. The comparison obviously has to make sense. So I cannot say, for example, Ahmad is more dead than Khalid. That doesn't make any sense. So I cannot say Ahmad amwat min Khalid. That's completely wrong. Okay. I cannot also form use this pattern for nouns that already use that pattern. For example, Ahmar, colors and defects, use أفعل, أحمر. So I cannot say هذه الزهرة أحمر من تلك الزهرة. So this flower is redder, literally, than that flower. That doesn't make sense. We need a helping word. We can say أكثر حمرة is more in terms of redness, literally. أكثر حمرة. So we use أكثر instead, more, and then we use حمرة, the quality or the color quality. So we cannot really use pattern أفعل for the comparison when it comes for colors and defects, for nouns that are already using pattern أفعال for colors and defects. So this is just extra information. You don't need to really dig and freeze over this. Just know that it has to be from 3-letter verbs, and you cannot use it for example, over here for from words that are already colors and defects that use pattern أفعال. The rest is all common sense that you're gonna already apply without even mentioning. More examples, just extra examples. If I say knowledge is more beneficial, العلم أنفع من المال is more beneficial than money. الشمس أكبر من الأرض, the sun is bigger or larger than earth. السكوت أفضل من الكلام, silence is better than speech. Well, depends. شاهدت, I saw, امرأة أجمل من القمر. I saw a woman who was more beautiful than the moon. Just a note, we do use the feminine form, which is فعل, in like only certain nouns, especially in set phrases. So for example, the most important ones that you need to know, الصغرى, الكبرى. If you're speaking about family members, let's say. فاطمة هي الصغرى. فاطمة هي الصغرى. Fatima is the youngest. ليلى هي الكبرى. ليلى هي الكبرى. Layla is the eldest. Also الدرجة الكبرى, the highest grade. Or السرعة القصوى, the maximum speed. القصوى is common as well. So only a few words, just focus on الصغرى والكبرى. Typically the default is masculine. We use the pattern أفعل for both, but only a few words like الصغرى والكبرى. So you don't have to panic. Also, we use اسم التفضيل, or the adjective of comparison and superlative that we use to compare. We use it in the dual and plural. So we can use it in the feminine, as we mentioned in some exceptions, and we can use it in the dual and plural to reflect the noun, because adjectives have to reflect the noun in terms of gender and, if applicable, number. So over here, al-asma, non-human plural, we say al-husna, because non-human plural takes singular feminine adjective. Al-asma al-husna. Al-rijal al-akarim. So al-rijal, al-akram changes to al-akarim. Al-rajul al-akram, the most generous man. Al-rijal al-akarim, the most generous or the generous men. At-tilmidhan al-afdalan. So the best students, the two best students, التلميذان الأفضلان. So tilmidhan in the dual, أفضل becomes أفضلان in this case, because dual and dual, the adjective has to follow the noun. Over here, الرجال plural, the adjective has to be plural, الأكارم. Over here, الأسماء non-human plural takes singular feminine adjective. Also, I mentioned when we were speaking about colors, we cannot say, for example, a flower is redder, أحمر, than another flower. So we have to use another format. And I said أكثر حمرة. So we can use a comparable word like أكثر, more, or أعظم, greater, أو أشد, more intense, أو أكبر, bigger. And then we use the quality. So if I want to say, for example, someone is more generous, I can use أكثر plus the gerund, or the quality. So أكثر كرما. Karaman is the gerund from the verb karuma. Karuma, and the gerund is karam or karaman. So أكثر كرما. I can say, for example, Ahmad is more generous. Ahmad أكثر كرما. He's more in terms of generosity. Remember, we're using the gerund, so it's literally generosity over here. Okay, and not generous, not kareem. So أكثر كرما. So you could think of it like is more or higher in terms of generosity. أكثر سرعة. Instead of saying أسرع, faster, using أفعل, we use أكثر, which is itself a comparable word. So أكثر plus سرعة, which is the gerund from سرعة. سرعة means speed, so more or higher in terms of speed. Okay, and This noun will be in the accusative case, just in case you're really into case endings. So أكثر كرما, أكثر سرعة, أكثر جمالا. Instead of saying more beautiful, instead of saying أجمل, instead of saying أجمل, we say أكثر جمالا. So أكثر جمالا instead of saying أجمل. For example, I could say سارة أجمل من أمينة. Sarah is more beautiful than Amina, but I could say سارة أكثر جمالا, is higher or more in terms of beauty. So I used جمال, which means beauty, and so on. So this is another way we could use these comparable nouns. أكثر اجتهادا, same thing, is instead of saying هو مجتهد, he's hardworking, he's more in terms of اجتهاد, in terms of working hard. So أكثر اجتهادا, and that comes from the verb اجتهد. If we mentioned colors, أشد حمرة, for example, أو أشد زرقة. So from the verb زرقة, to become blue, we have زرقة, which means blueness, literally. So it's more intense in terms of blueness. أشد زرقة أو زرقة if we're pronouncing the case endings. So it renders in the accusative case. And the final note, be mindful of exclamatory verbs. They are formed from pattern أفعل. So if I say ما أجمل الحياة, how beautiful life is, ما أجمل الحياة, أو ما أسرع السيارة, how fast the car is, it's also pattern أفعل, but they come with ما. And this is to express exclamation. How beautiful, how fast, ما أجمل, ما أسرع. So ما plus أفعل, that's exclamation, but أفعل on its own, that's comparison. So if I say سارة أجمل من أمينة, Sarah is more beautiful than Amina. Or سيارتي أسرع من سيارتك. So my car is faster than your car. But if I say ما أسرع سيارتي, how fast is my car? That's different. So same pattern, but the use changes. Over here, when we add ما, that becomes exclamation. وصلنا إلى النهاية. I know that was a tough lesson. I hope you've taken notes. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments. If you like the video, do let me know. That really helps the channel. It makes a big difference. وشكرا لكم ولحسن الانتباه، وإلى اللقاء وفي حفظ الله ورعايته، ومع السلامة.